Hey everyone, welcome back to the Unfulfilled Podcast. I'm your host, Camille. Today I am joined with Ashley, both my friend and the host of her own podcast, Adjust Your Focus. Today we're going to talk about really awesome topics that I know we're all going to benefit from, starting with how to be selfish with your energy in your relationships, but to a point where you're not actually being selfish, if that makes sense. How to be your own best friend, why it's so important, finding the courage to be your authentic self, and how hard that can be at times because of fear of judgment. And finally, going against the grain and incorporating mindset shifts to know that you're worthy of more for yourself in your life. But before diving in, please click follow or subscribe wherever you are listening to the podcast. And also tune into Ashley's podcast. Hers will be linked in the show notes. Adjust your focus. So let's dive into this awesome conversation with Ashley. So, being selfish with your energy, what does that look like to you, Ashley?
I think being selfish with your energy, I think it always comes with a negative connotation, this idea of being selfish. But I don't think that's always something that needs to be negative. I think certain times in our lives, we need to be selfish with our energy. And it comes with certain seasons of life. At least for myself, I noticed that I'm such a people pleaser at heart. Like, I want to pour my everything into other people. And sometimes when I notice that I'm doing that too much, or that I feel drained in my own personal well being, that I need to pour more energy into myself. And it's just about finding that balance between the two of being able to give your authentic self to others, but also allowing energy being poured into yourself so that you can be authentic with your friendships. And I think it's finding that balance and finding that line between the two. And it is hard. It does take time. And it also, again, is those seasons where I feel like sometimes you are going to be pouring more energy into yourself in certain seasons. And then in other seasons, you're going to be pouring energy into others.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more with that. We need to take care of ourselves before
Mm-hmm.
being able to show up as our best selves in our relationships. Times I've noticed where I'm perhaps too focused on others and not enough on myself is when I'm seeking that external validation from people. I love that you brought up people pleasing because I think we're all victims of that. And it's a really hard mindset to overcome because we want to be loved and accepted by others and we want to, be loved and have these great relationships. But the reality is, our relationships are only going to be so fulfilling if we focus on channeling that fulfillment and energy internally first. So there's been times when definitely I've just said yes to things socially
Mm-hmm.
and just like go along with it because I don't want to upset people or I feel guilty saying no or canceling plans. But I find that when I do that and don't tune into what actually feels good to me in that moment, it never makes me feel good. It makes me feel more drained and it
Mm-hmm.
feels forced. And I'm like, oh, like I kind of like wish I didn't do that. And so every time I have an experience where I will say yes to something or I'll put too much energy into pleasing others, I notice that feeling of feeling drained and I notice
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of not feeling like I'm being my authentic self or respecting myself by doing what feels good to me. And I kind of use that as a lesson moving forward. Like, okay, in this instance, maybe I should pump the brakes more and tune in when I need to
Right.
have a night in by myself and like
Mm-hmm.
learn to not just say yes because it didn't make me feel good just going to please others.
Right. And I think society, especially places this expectation on us that we need to have all these friends and all these social plans. And that's where I tend to notice that when I feel guilty about not going out and doing something like on a Friday night, for example, like if I really don't feel like going out and I just want to be in my bed or like watch Netflix or whatever, like society places the expectation on us that, especially because we're in our 20s and we're young and we should have fun, that we should go and have those plans with people and go and meet people and have fun. But it's like, at the same time, when you're coming, I think it all comes from that state of desperation where you feel like, I need to do this because I want other people to perceive me this certain way. And you're almost coming from this place of desperation where you otherwise you're going to feel lonely, or you're going to feel like people are judging you, or you're going to feel insecure in yourself. So you come from this place of desperation where you're like, I don't really care how I feel in that situation. You're putting your own needs on the back burner because you'd rather just be part of a social plan and seen with people and being out because that's what you're supposed to be doing. But it's like at the same time, you'd be so much more fulfilled if you chose yourself in that situation or did what you actually wanted to do. But it's hard to make that decision, especially when you're worried about the judgment from other people or worried that you're not going to be fitting into this societal expectation of what you should be doing in your 20s, because it's the truth is you're not always going to be wanting to go out all of the time. Like, it's fun every once in a while, but
Yeah, absolutely. It's really just like respecting yourself, right?
Mhm.
It's giving yourself what you need and also what you want. I love that you brought up the idea of seasons before. Like, we have certain seasons where we are going to need more time to ourselves, and there's going to be other seasons where maybe we do want to be more social and lean more on our relationships.
Mhm.
And if we tune into what is going to feel good to us, where it's going to actually boost our energy and replenish our energy, that's really respecting ourselves. But transitioning into our next topic, being your own best friend, that's how you actually learn to tune into what you need.
Right.
If you don't take that time to spend time alone, get to know and love yourself, you're never actually going to know what's true to you. Like
Mhm.
you said, you're always just going to cave into society's expectations and pressures of going out all the time, constantly making social plans, going on dates, surrounding yourself with friends. And, society even often hates like spending time alone or taking yourself out on dates. Is like, oh, that's like sad and lonely. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's actually really empowering and cool if you feel like you can spend time alone confidently.
I think that's such an amazing strength that someone can have, is being empowered and feeling okay with spending time alone and like feeling good in your own company. Because at the end of the day, the relationship that you have with yourself is the only relationship that you will continue to have for the rest of your life. Like, people can come and go, friendships, relationships, whatever. And yes, they may fulfill you in the moment, but at the end of the day, if your relationship with yourself isn't strong, and if you don't feel comfortable when you're alone, or you don't know what you like, what you don't like what makes you you, you're going to be constantly seeking from all these external sources and all of these friendships and relationships for that feeling of fulfillment. And you're never going to actually achieve that feeling if you don't give it to yourself to begin with. And it should just be an additive that you have these people in your life rather than trying to seek that fulfillment in them.
Exactly. I love that. It's very clear when you're seeking that external validation or that external fulfillment that you don't feel it within. But I think too, when you're looking for something from your relationships, when you're needing them to fill your cup, you're putting out this energy of like need and what can I take from these people. Whereas when you're coming from a place of, oh, I am already feeling fulfilled within, because I'm practice being selfish with my energy and being my own best friend,
Right.
then you approach your relationships from a place of giving,
Right.
a place of let me share this positive energy and give to my relationships and help fill their cups rather than how can I see how they can fill my cup.
Yeah. And you also recognize what you can give to the table. Because if you know yourself and you know what gifts you have to be able to give to a relationship or give to a friendship, because otherwise, again, like when you're coming from that seat of desperation, you're like, okay, what can they give me? Like, how can I feel fulfilled versus, okay, what do I bring to the table? And I'm secure in that, knowing what I can add to this versus what can they add to me? Because at the end of the day, like, again, you are your own person, and those people are helping to add to you, but they're not going to complete you. And I think that's why, like, I don't necessarily love this state or like the saying, like, you're my other half, because I think at the end of the day, you have your whole self. These people are just adding to who you already are.
I never thought of that, but I so agree. It's like, okay, but we're supposed to like be complete and worthy as we are. So it should be a cherry on top, like you said. It
Right.
shouldn't be like my other half is missing and I need to go find someone that fulfills me. But it's like you said, society tells us that we should be looking for something out there that's going to fulfill us, like whether it be that product or that relationship or that trip, telling us that it's external, but really it's internal.
All internal. And I think the other thing too is like when you're seeking certain things from other people because you feel like you're coming from a place of lack, like, oh, I want somebody to compliment me all the time, or I want somebody to give me flowers all the time, or whatever it is, you're going to constantly seek that one thing from that person. I don't know if you ever noticed, at least for myself, at least in the beginning, I'm like, ah, they're so perfect. Like, everything they're doing is so amazing. And I love them so much and everything. You almost go in with like rose tinted glasses on, like everything that they're doing is amazing. And you feel so fulfilled in the beginning because you're almost like neglecting the not the bad parts of them, but you just only see it one way versus them as a whole. And when you're coming into it from a place of, okay, well, there's somebody that can help add to me, and there's somebody who is going to make me feel good, yes, but I can also make myself feel good. You're not going to praise every single thing that they do. I think that you need to come into a relationship or come into a friendship recognizing, okay, that was really nice, but there's also all these other things to them, because then you see them as their whole person versus just as like their actions towards you in the beginning, because that can always fade away. Actions can always fade away, but who they are as a person stays the same throughout the whole time.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I love what you said too, that, there's going to be certain aspects of people that we love and admire, and then there's going to be other aspects we might not love and admire. And similarly, we're going to have certain people in our life who we can seek certain kinds of support from and maybe not other kinds of support. Vice versa, there might be other people in our life who help contribute something else that we might be seeking. And one person doesn't have to be the whole package.
Right.
This is what I'm trying to say, especially a romantic partner. Like, we want them to be everything and perfect. But no, you can have, friendships that compensate for maybe where that partner doesn't add something specific to your life that you're looking for. And I think that's the beauty of balance and having different kind of people in your life, but also, again, knowing that what you truly need, you have to give to yourself. People can sprinkle in different things without having to be everything to you.
Right. And I think it's the same thing with friendships too, because I feel like, at least for me, I have a bunch of different types of friends. Like, I have friends who I'll talk to once a month. I have friends that I know I can call for anything. I have friends that, oh, maybe they'll just call me every once in a while. And I think we all have this expectation that we're going to have this best friend who's going to be our genuine friend for life. And we're going to call them with everything. We're going to text them with everything. We're going to be friends all the time. But the truth is majority of the time, that never really stands true, because we're all growing. We're all changing. There's so many shifts in our lives, especially at our age in our 20s, is those are not always going to stay the same. You might have different paths in life, and that's okay. But it's just normalizing that there isn't going to be that one person that's going to be with you all the time. That's why you have to have yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I almost kind of want to tie that back into the whole idea of being selfish, and maybe not selfish in this instance, but self-aware. That, okay, if you're in a certain phase or era in life where like you're evolving into who you are, and maybe certain friends in your life are evolving in a whole different direction, and if you're drifting apart from people, I think there is an element of selfishness and self-awareness that we should implement, to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, that person might not be for me anymore, or it's okay that we're growing apart, to not force these friendships when it doesn't feel true to you. So I think that's another way that it could be beneficial to kind of be selfish or honest with ourselves, in the sense that that person's no longer filling my cup, or that person does not have my best interest, and I'm not going to force it just to people please. But then there's that other side of it, kind of like what we talked about in the beginning, just to wrap up like the selfish conversation. We obviously just talked about how it can be a good thing to be selfish, but it's such a fine line of, yes, we need to look out for ourselves and fill our cup first. But when you cross that boundary, we can be perceived or come across as too focused on ourselves and not showing up for our relationships enough if we're only focused on ourselves, So what's that fine line of, okay, yes, we're looking out for ourselves, but how can we also show up for our relationships in a compassionate way?
Yeah, I definitely have had seasons like that where I've been almost too selfish, especially when I come from a season where I notice, oh, I'm putting too much energy into other people. I need to start putting that energy towards myself. And then I almost go, like, I feel like there's this line in the middle of where you have your energy towards your friends or your energy towards yourself. And there's like finding that middle point. And for me, when I'm too selfish and when I feel like I'm pouring too much energy into myself, I'm neglecting those social relationships, or I'm neglecting my, even sometimes like my family relationships. Like, I won't be talking to my family as much because I'm just putting so much energy into me. And that means, like, sometimes it's like, I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb, I'm going to go do whatever I want, and I'm going to not have to owe an explanation to anybody, like girl boss, which is fine. Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But at the same time, and yes, at the end of the day, you do have yourself, but what's this life worth living if you don't have other people in your life that you can be a good friend to, or be a good sister, daughter, whoever? Those are people that are also going to not necessarily complete your life, but they're going to help you become who you are. And also, those are people that you can learn from and grow from. I think we all need different perspectives in our life. And I start to notice that when I'm by myself too much, or I'm spending too much time with myself, I'm overthinking everything I'm doing, because I'm like, that's all I'm with, is I'm with my own thoughts all day, every day. I'm not allowing anyone else into my life. And I think you need those people in your life for support and for perspectives, and just to give you that same energy in return.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a great point. Like, we do have different seasons, but sometimes if I go through seasons like that where I'm like just totally doing my thing, I'll get to a point where I will have a social interaction with a genuine friend and I'm like, oh yeah, I actually do really crave this social connection. I
Yeah.
probably could stand to sprinkle a little bit more into my life. Like sometimes we get like too in our zone of
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna do and it's balance is key because connection is so important, but it's finding that line of like, okay, what do I need right now? Do I need alone time and to work on being my own best friend and showing up for myself? Or do I need to focus more on nourishing my relationships? Or maybe you're craving some social connection and that's really important to tune into. There's been an instance where, obviously multiple instances in my life, but
Mhm.
the instances that have taught me where I maybe am being a little too selfish are when I fail to communicate when I need to be more selfish with my energy. So,
Mhm.
for example, there were like friends in town a month or two ago, and I kind of like just tagged along for one of the group dinners, and I was focusing on the podcast and focusing on myself a lot in that era. And so I did my thing for the rest of the weekend, and one of my best friends communicated to me like, I was kind of bummed you didn't tag along. Like I came into town,
Mhm.
and I felt so guilty because it made me feel like a bad friend. Whereas I should have just communicated in the beginning, like, this is kind of the era I'm in. I just need to be like a little more selfish with my energy and time right now because I'm working on something I'm really passionate about. And that was a huge lesson in how important communicating is. So it's okay to have eras where you're more selfish with your energy, but you have to communicate that to the people in your life. Otherwise, you will be perceived as selfish. But if you openly communicate it, then your friends and family members can be supportive because they're fully in the know. Like I've had
Right.
friends who are definitely selfish with their energy at times, and then I'll like get all insecure about our friendship. I'll think I did something wrong. And then after the fact, they communicate to me. I'm kind of just going through this phase where I need to like do my thing a little. And it just clarifies so much. And then we stop taking
Yes.
it personally and we don't consider them selfish. We consider them in a growth phase, I guess.
Yes. No, and it's 100% true, especially if you have past relationships or past friendships where you feel like communication wasn't really a thing. Like it was very surface level. You didn't really communicate how you were feeling. You didn't open up a space where you were comfortable to communicate about that. Then, at least for me, I think, well, they don't really care. Like if they're hanging out and I happen to be busy, they're not going to take offense to it because at the end of the day, they don't really care what I'm doing. They're going to still have fun on their own. But genuine friends and genuine connections who are supportive of you want you to communicate and they're going to open up a space for you to communicate and vice versa. Like if you actually care about someone, open up a space to communicate because like you said, like you would never have known that they were going through something or they were doing something because you took it so personal, but reach out to them, ask them, hey, like what's actually going on, because maybe they don't feel like they have a space to communicate, but it's vice versa. You need to also open up that space for them to feel like they are supported and have a genuine friend. I think everyone at the end of the day is just seeking that, and if you're able to be that person for them, then they will do that in return for you.
Yeah, 100%. I love that you said that. Just reach out to them. Like it's if you're kind of offended that a friend maybe hasn't reached out in a while, we never know what someone's going through. And if we take that step to reach out to someone and compassionately ask, like, hey, is just checking in, like thinking of you, hope you're good. I really appreciate our friendship, blah, blah, blah. They might really, really appreciate that. And then that can be a door for them to open up about whatever they're going through. Because 99% of the time, we think it's about us and it's never about us.
It's never about us.
Yeah, it's like everyone's in their own little world. And it's so easy to think that everything is intentional and malicious and about us, but it's really not. And so I love that. It's if you reach out to someone with compassion and curiosity, that's a way to be a supportive friend while also appreciating that we can be focused on ourselves.
100%. And I think that also kind of ties into the whole selfishness thing, because if you can go into a friendship and also understand that they're also a person, because I feel like sometimes I go into a friendship and I'm like, okay, what are they giving me? Like, are they texting me? Are they calling me? Like, what's going on? And then I'm also like, well, how much am I giving to them? And there's just the balance between the two. Like, you don't want to be too selfish in your relationships. You also don't want the person that's always being put on the back burner. You kind of have to find that fine line. And it's just analyzing your friendships, which sometimes you can over analyze a friendship, but you know yourself the best. You know the way that you feel. You know the way that you should be feeling. At the end of the day, be honest with yourself in any friendship or any relationship.
Totally. I agree. Why don't we shift to our mindset? So, if we want something more for ourselves in life, not just abiding to what society tells us we have to be doing, if we're kind of just going through the motions, how can we develop that mindset to feel like we're worthy of that, or like we can, if it seems so far off and we've never crossed that boundary? How can we practice being our authentic selves and knowing that we're worthy for more in life and pursuing our passion?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. I'm gonna preface with that. It's really hard.
Let's just end
It's really hard. That's all. So yes, I'm gonna truth bomb you. No, but honestly, it is really hard, especially because you see someone else doing the thing you want to do so bad, or you see someone else thriving, and you're like, oh, I wish I could do that. I am not capable of doing that. Because we're our own worst critic at the end of the day. You can tell yourself all of the worst things about yourself, even if they're not true, but you're gonna believe it because it's your own thoughts, and your thoughts become your reality. But it's starting with changing those thoughts, because your thoughts become a reality. So changing those thoughts to I can and I am capable. And as much as those affirmations on like your mirror that you say to yourself are like cheesy, they kind of do work, because the more you tell yourself something, the more it becomes your reality. But also at the same time, what helps me, because I get imposter syndrome, because from the podcast, from doing other things, I'm like, I'm just little old me. Like I don't think anything of it. But then when you look at yourself from an outside perspective of somebody seeing what you're doing right now, and they're most likely thinking what you're thinking about someone else, like, oh, I wish I could do that. Like she has so much confidence in herself and so much strength. Like take yourself into that other person's perspective and see how they're looking at you. And you're like, oh my gosh, like someone else admires me for what I'm doing. Or if you haven't made that step yet, think about when you do make that step, they're going to admire you for doing what you're doing. Everyone's constantly seeing someone else do something that they want to do and downplaying themselves because of it. And it's like, you just need to stop that comparison, because everyone at the end of the day is capable of doing whatever you set your mind to. There's no one that's better off than the other. Everyone can do anything, truly. You just have to have that belief in yourself and stop comparing what someone else is doing.
100%. And imposter syndrome really, I don't think that ever fully goes away. The podcasters who've made it that we listen to, like they even talk about it. And I'm like,
Right.
you have imposter syndrome? How?
There's always going to be somebody that's like doing it quote unquote better than you or differently than you. Yeah.
Always a greener pasture. There's always someone that we can compare ourselves to and feel down on ourselves. But I like that you use the term admire, because this is a mindset shift I love to talk about a lot. Is when we are in that state of comparison, it's like a negative energy state, right? We're coming from a place of I am not enough and we wish we were different. It's like a very like negative frequency. But when we shift it to admiration, when we look at someone else like doing something that we admire, that maybe we would like for ourselves, don't think, oh, like they're so much better than me, I wish I was them. How can we think, okay, wow, I really admire what they're doing. How can I learn from it and maybe incorporate some of that into my own life? But
Absolutely.
It's when we wish we were a different person that we tell ourselves we don't like who we are, or that we're not enough, because we're all unique and we all have gifts. It's okay to want to sprinkle in things we admire about other people on top of our own uniqueness and gifts. But that's very different than comparing to someone else and saying, oh, I could never do what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, sure, if you're just going to sit there and think that you're not good enough and you never take steps towards learning and growing, or even like move towards that direction, yeah, you're going to have major imposter syndrome and never think you can, because you're not doing anything. If you take one step at a time, the imposter syndrome diminishes every step you take.
Right. And I think it all ties back into the whole being your own best friend thing, because if you constantly seek the external validation of, oh, I'm doing a good job because someone told me, like at the end of the day, just have the confidence in yourself that what you're doing is meant for you. And at the end of the day, you don't want to be a carbon copy of someone else, because you're not adding any value to it. You're just doing exactly what someone else did. And most likely you're not doing it the same. So you're going to be even more comparing, because you're like, oh, I'm trying the same thing and it's not giving me the same results. No wonder it's not giving you the same results, because they already did it. Like you want to add your own value to whatever you're doing, because that's where you're authentically yourself and you have these gifts to give to the world, and the world needs you and they want what you can give and not what someone else can give. And yes, I do like that you said the whole admiring thing and how you can just sprinkle little things into your own thing, because even in the podcasting community, there's so many podcasters, like a ton, and we're all doing our own different thing, but there's different things that we have that we share and we do similar things, because it's like you can take inspiration from someone else. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be talking the exact same way someone else is, or marketing the same exact way that someone else is, because they're already doing that. You can have your own way of doing it that's unique to you, and that's going to build confidence in you, because you're like, I'm being authentically me. People like it. I like it. I feel good doing it. So it just breeds more confidence. And that's the whole thing with the imposter syndrome thing too. Those are the steps that you need to take as you're doing more things that make you feel like yourself and it makes you feel good and makes you feel successful. You're just going to continue to keep doing that.
Something that Mel Robbins says all the time that I love, like you just mentioned, there's a ton of podcasters out there, but okay, there's also like millions of doctors in the world. That doesn't mean you should not try to be a doctor. For example, like you and I have like very similar podcast platforms and spaces in the wellness niche, but that doesn't mean that there's not room for both of us because we are incorporating our own uniqueness and gifts and voice in our own way on platforms, you know? So that's another reason we can't compare is because we're all different. Like, even if you think, oh, that thing I want to do, it's already way too saturated, I could never make it. That's just an excuse that you're telling yourself to not start. I think, you know, I definitely had those thoughts before entering this journey and still battle those thoughts every single day. But that's really just a mindset shift that we have to shift out of if we want to stay optimistic and motivated towards accomplishing our goals. In that, no, there is room for you. Every single person can be successful and lean into their gifts and passion. But we need to remind ourselves that just because there's other people doing something similar doesn't mean that you aren't worthy of it or that you can't get there yourself. Because everyone starts somewhere.
Exactly. And that's the thing too. We compare our level 2 to someone's level. We compare our level 2 to someone else's level 100. We have no idea how long it took them to get there, how hard it was for them to get there, how many times they failed to get there, how many times they doubted themselves to get there. We only see other people's highlight reel. So we're comparing our negative energy and our struggles to someone else's successes, but you have no idea how long it took them to get there. You also don't know if they're still struggling or if they still have those thoughts. There's no reason to compare because we're all, at the end of the day, we're all in different levels of our journey. We're all different people. We all have different thoughts. We all have these different things. There's no reason to compare. There's also just so much room for all of us on this earth. There's billions of us and there's room for all of us. So at the end of the day, don't take it so serious. Do what you love and do what makes you happy. And who cares what anyone else thinks and who cares what anyone else is doing because it's your life and you can cheer on other people. That's the whole point, is just to admire and support other people. It's not to say, well, they're doing so much better than me, so that makes me feel worse. Like, you should see them and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for them. But I also have my own things going on too that make me happy.
Yeah, it's easy to come from that place of scarcity mindset and say, oh, because that person had success in some way that I want to have success, that there's not enough for me. But that's just coming from a place of lack. Whereas if we give out the energy of support and love and excitement for others' successes, that's going to come back around to us. But I think it's so true. What we give out and what we put out there will eventually come back to us. And also, my mom always says this, and I love it, and I feel like it's applicable here. It's so important to not just get complacent if you're not feeling fulfilled or if you feel like you have a bigger purpose that you're not leaning into. Because later in life, when you look back and you didn't take the risk towards trying that thing, literally anything, like could be like joining a sports team that you've been wanting to join or booking a trip. Like, it doesn't even have to be a career related thing, like anything. If you want to do something, if something is calling to you, but you're nervous to try, you have that imposter syndrome, or it just seems scary and uncomfortable because of the uncertainty, think about future you years down the line. Are you going to look back and regret never trying it? Then you should try it now. Especially like for all, like those of us in our 20s, now is the time.
We have nothing to lose.
Literally, we have nothing to lose. Like, working with back when we have kids down the line, like, oh my God, I had so much free time and freedom. Why did I waste it? And it's like, I think there's a lot of people who also don't know what they're passionate and excited about. And okay, then try things. Start to get curious and just like dabble in some like random things in life and into what feels good or what's calling to you. And then the more things you try, the more you learn about yourself and start to uncover what you're passionate about. But now's the time to try new things, and we don't want to look back and regret.
Right. And I think that goes into the whole going against the grain, which is, I know, what we wanted to focus on too. Society has this expectation that you need to go to college, have a 9-to-5 corporate job, start a family, and then your whole life is your family from there. You have this carbon copy of what your life is supposed to look like. You are your own authentic person. You have so many gifts to give to this world, and you have no idea what makes you unique until you go out and lean into that. And you may face judgment from other people. Other people may not understand what you're doing, and they may be like, why are you doing that? That's so weird. Or they may judge you for it, or whatever. And you can either allow it to make you insecure and stop you from going to go and do that thing that you feel is your passion, or you can say, you know what, you don't understand, which is okay, but I'm going to go out and do this anyways because it makes me happy and it makes me me. And this is what I can give to the world at the end of the day. That's the true authenticity, is just going after what you want, and also understanding that it's scary, and understanding that there's risk involved, and understanding that it may not work out. Anything in life, starting something new, you can fail, and that's okay. At least you tried. At least you had the courage to try, because someone else is seeing you and judging you for doing it. But here they are sitting behind their desk all day, and they're not having the courage to go and do what you're doing. So it's just understanding that it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I'm such a perfectionist at heart. So if I go and do something, I want to succeed at it. And I think everyone does. I think everyone comes from that state of, if you're going to go do something, you want to do it well. But it's just starting it is the first step. And then you'll figure it out along the way. Actually getting there is the hardest part. And then from there, you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to fail and learn again. It's just that constant growing and learning. But it's just doing that first step, facing judgment from others and being okay with it and not listening. You kind of just have to tune it out.
Yeah. And I think it is the hardest part, though, about going against the grain and embracing being our authentic selves, because often it might not look like the carbon copy that society promotes, like you said. And nor should it. Again, we're all unique and have these like different gifts. Why would we all want the same? Like,
Right.
that's the purpose of us being able to contribute and do something different and cool in the world. And the hardest part about being our authentic self, at least the hardest part I find, is yeah, we have that fear of being rejected by the people we love or by friends in life. We are perceived one way for so long. And when we start to lean into who we authentically are, we do have to shed the people who might only appreciate that old version of us and not appreciate this new authentic version of us. You gave me great insight right before this call, in that the people who are truly going to love and support you for being your authentic self and taking a risk and doing something cool, even if that's going against the grain in certain people's eyes, the people who are meant to support you and who will love you for who you are will, the people who maybe aren't going to be supportive or project judgment, to me, that's just a projection of insecurity or perhaps jealousy. Like, there's a lot of people who envy people who have the guts to go out and do something different, because it is really uncomfortable and it takes a lot of effort. And so I think there are a lot of people too who will project certain judgments, but I think it's just honestly maybe their own insecurities in that they can't go do the thing. And so if you feel, judged from someone for doing anything, remind yourself that it's just them coming from a place where they're not very confident in maybe their own life, and people just project a bunch of stuff onto us.
I think that's how you can also make peace with letting go of certain people, because you're like, it's not me. It's something that they need to do their own internal work on and figure out how to be their own best friend and do the growth journey and understand themselves a little bit better as to why they're projecting their insecurities onto me. And that's that's how I at least make peace with letting go of certain people, because it can be really hard, especially like if you go and do something and they're not supportive of you. I think that's the greatest way, honestly, to weed out the people in your life who aren't meant to be there. Because if you go and do something that takes courage and takes confidence in yourself, and somebody judges you for it that you thought was your friend or thought was supportive of you, then maybe they were only supportive of you during the times where you were fitting this certain standard that they wanted you to fit. And now that all of a sudden you're either growing or you're changing or whatever, because sometimes they see that as a threat. Like, if you're going to go do something where you're becoming successful, or you're going to go do something that you're taking a chance on yourself, they're like, oh, I wish I could do that. So instead of being like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you, they're like, well, why are you doing that? Like, I want you to be back at my level again.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to accept, but at the same time, it allows you to make peace with letting go of that friendship or relationship or whatever it is, because you're like, I'm working on myself. I think you also need to work on yourself in order to get to where I am, so that we are, because again, everyone has their own growth journey, everyone has their own paths, and that's just life. And it's unfortunate. But I also think that nothing worth having comes easy. And I think that if you want to get to a certain point in your life, or if you want to grow, or if you want to achieve something, it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to deal with certain people's judgments, and you're going to have to deal with letting go of certain people even though you don't want to. Like, it's going to be hard. It's a process, it's a journey. That's why it's there. We're both still growing through our growth journeys. So we're both still experiencing it. It never ends. It literally never ends. You're constantly learning, which is what I also think is so amazing about it.
I so agree. And another quote that I love is that your social circle should grow and evolve with you.
Yes.
So as we lean more into our authentic self, it's 100% normal and expected that the people we surround ourselves by and feel uplifted by is going to change too, you know? And because, yeah, there might be people who don't have your best interest because, again, coming back to that, they might have that scarcity mindset, for example, of like, oh, if they're going to be successful doing something, then there's not room for me. But no, the friends who are truly confident in themselves and who aren't afraid to lean into who they are and are coming from a place of abundance, those are going to be the friends who are supportive rather than the friends who project maybe their own insecurities.
Oh, it's okay. No, and I'd rather, honestly, for me personally, I'd rather be around those people that are up leveling themselves, because for me, that's inspirational. Like, oh my gosh, I want to be like you. You push me to do better. You push me to grow. With the right mindset, you see those people who are taking a chance on themselves and have the confidence in themselves to go and do the thing that no one else wants to do or doesn't have the courage to do. You see that as inspirational. You don't see it as something that's like, oh, I wish that they could just be back to where they were because it made me feel comfortable. No, that also makes me want to up level myself. You are a reflection of the 5 closest people around you. And I want the 5 closest people around me to be successful in what they do and want to be better and want to grow and also push me to grow. Like, they want to see me grow too, because that overall helps me feel supported and loved. And I think it's just understanding that that's actually the true basis of a friendship. It's not necessarily always going to be the who is a person I can just yap with all day, which is really fun. But at the same time, it's also those people that you like can be supportive with and want to see grow and want to see you grow.
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, it's important to be our own biggest supporter. Again, you know, coming full circle to we have to be our own best friend. We have to be our biggest supporter, especially in the beginning phases of doing something. We're not going to have that external support. But the whole beauty of any journey that you're going down is learning to give it to yourself, learning to be your biggest supporter. But I think it is also really important to surround yourself, like you said, with people who are also going to support and uplift you, because you do need both. Like, we're human beings. We do crave connection and that kind of support. And this is why I wish you lived in New York City.
I'll be moving there.
And like we said earlier, not every single person needs to be everything to you. I have friends, for example, who I don't really open up very much to about the podcast.
They're your yap friends.
Yes, they're my like, let's go out and have fun friends.
Yes.
But then I have the people that I also very much need and value, who I feel like I can express my goals and passions and big dreams with, and who won't try to, you know, push me down a little bit or like dim my light or project something onto it. And I've learned who those people are and aren't, and that's okay. Like, you can have that variety. It doesn't make anyone a bad person. It's just being aware of what that relationship is going to offer and maybe where you need to find something elsewhere, you know? But at the end of the day, we should not surround ourselves with people who we feel like we have to dim our light around.
Right.
We should surround ourselves with people who want our light to shine brightly. And then that makes us want to do the same for them.
Yes. And I also think I like that you mentioned the whole thing about, like, we're all well-rounded individuals. And we were talking about this earlier. But just because we have a podcast and just because you have a growth mindset, that's not your identity. Like, you're allowed to have fun every once in a while, have those friends that you go out with. Like, I think that there's so many aspects to a person that, regardless of just not even a podcast, but like if your job, for example, you make that your identity and you feel like you have to find people that only fit that and you have to live that lifestyle because that's who you are. The truth is your identity is not what you do. It's who you are, who you surround yourself with. Like, what do you like to do for fun? Like, there's so many other aspects of who you are as a person other than just like your job or your occupation, which is, I think, another thing that society puts on us is you have to, like, if this is who you are, then your social circle is similar to you, and that the people that you surround yourself with are also doing the same thing. But at the end of the day, a well-rounded person and being able to have all those perspectives, have fun every once in a while, be serious every once in a while, have people that you can go to if you need to have a good cry or if you want to laugh. Like, I think you need those type of people in your life, and don't have the mindset that you have to be this certain type of person, because everyone has all these aspects to themselves that you don't want to hide that, because that's also authentically you, and that's how you become truly yourself is by letting all of those aspects of you show.
Yeah, we don't need to pick one lane and stay in it. Like we can do both. And it's a huge mindset I've been really practicing lately. Like our offline conversation again before on listening, I was sharing with Ashley that like this weekend I had like a kind of a big going out weekend, which I don't like normally do all the time because I like to do like more podcast and like wholesome things on weekends. Sometimes I'll find I like judge myself, like preaching this like wellness, wholesome thing, and then I'll like go out and I feel like it's like contradictory. No. We can do both, and balance is key. We shouldn't put all our eggs in one basket. We don't have to identify ourselves as like one specific thing and then say everything else is bad. It's okay to do both and to talk about it and lean into our authentic self. And I think it's just the fear of judgment at the end of the day. Like we shouldn't judge ourselves and we shouldn't fear that judgment of others. And so totally agree. Like it is very okay to, or it is a good thing to not identify as one specific thing, whether that be a career or a certain lifestyle. It's okay to have phases and seasons too.
Yeah, we're all human at the end of the day. We're allowed to have periods of time where we have fun, and you're allowed to also have periods of time where you're more serious and you want to invest in your growth journey. I think that's what also makes your podcast something that people can resonate in mind. I mean, but is you have those conversations because you're talking about things that are real. You're not just always going to say, well, this is how you grow from this. It's like, okay, no, I'm also experiencing this. We're all human. We're all coming from this place of sometimes you're going to have fun. You're going to have those times where you're silly and you're not going to be as wellness driven, and maybe you're not treating your body right because you're going to be drinking or whatever. But it's like at the same time, you're also allowed to have that time where you are with yourself, and it's that whole balance. Same thing like we said before about being selfish with your energy is sometimes you have those times where you are selfish with your energy and you're invested in your wellness. And then other times, okay, you're allowed to have fun. You're allowed to go out. You're a human being. And it's just like being real and raw with that and just letting people know that that's okay. Because I think another thing too is you feel like you're judged because the whole community or just social media preaches like I'm going to yoga in the morning and then I'm going to drink my green juice and then I'm going to go and do my meal prep for the day and all this stuff. And it's like, yes, that's amazing. You're going to have days like that. But you're also going to have times where you're going to go out all night and then eat pizza and then wake up in the morning and stay in bed until 11 a.m. Like that's also completely normal. We're all human.
Then if we lean into having too much fun, we crave that wellness.
Yes.
Balance in full circle, coming back to the energy thing. Do I need alone time? Do I need to be social? Do I crave fun right now? Or do I crave leaning into my passion or wellness practices? It's all about tuning into what we need and not shoulding ourselves or shoulding ourselves.
Yes.
So,
listening to those cues and understanding your relationship with yourself so you can lean into those cues and recognize when you need certain things and when you don't need certain things. And that all comes with spending time with yourself and understanding yourself at the end of the day, which is why you should listen to Camille's podcast because she talks all about that and that can help you to develop your relationship with yourself.
Same with Ashley's Adjust Your
Thank you.
Focus. I'm putting the links below.
Yeah.
Tying a bow on this, we're all our harshest critics at the end of the day. We're the ones that are judging ourselves the most. So whether it be being afraid to lean into your authentic self, judging yourself for not doing enough or doing too much of something, having trouble navigating certain relationships in your life, just be easier on yourself and know that we're all feeling these things.
Yes. I hope you all resonated with something that we talked about in today's episode. Understand that you are human and that it is okay to have hard times or to be confused. We are all confused at the end of the day. We're all trying to figure out this life. You're doing amazing. You're doing amazing.
We're doing great. We're doing great. Ashley, this was so awesome.
I'm so happy we got to do this.
I love you.
Love you. Bye.